Orlando.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone.
Welcome to the OZone.
The voice of Magic fans.
Welcome back to another episode of the OZone podcast, the voice of Magic fans, episode 12. What's going on, gentlemen?
What's up? What's going on?
What's going on? So today we had a special addition to our podcast. We've included our very first guest, which is Oscar Creed from the Instagram at OrlandoMagicWave. That we're going to include. It's going to be towards the end of our podcast. It's a new segment that we're starting called Overtime, where we're going to start trying to bring in as many Orlando Magic influencers that we can introduce to the people. So really excited. So definitely stay tuned towards the end of the podcast to listen to that. But before we jump into our segments in our episode, we just recently, or just now actually, completed our very first loser reward challenge. So for those of you that have been listening on a consistent basis, every single week we select a prediction that we have based on whatever the game of the week that we decide. And then between the 7 of us, whoever has the least amount of correct predictions has to do a challenge.
Right.
Today's challenge was a spicy noodle challenge.
Spicy noodle challenge.
And they were spicy, by the way.
And this was a buy one get one free. We had 2 individuals. We had Mr. Witt, who's joining with us today.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And we have Ariel that did it right before we started the podcast. We made sure that he had to be here and complete the challenge and whatnot. So definitely stay tuned. Check the Instagram, social medias. We're going to be posting it. We made a whole entire video because there's no way that we're going to let them forget this moment because it was amazing. In the studio, we mentioned that Witt is here. We have Justin,
Yo,
Al,
What's up?
and myself, Anthony. And so Witt, tell me, how was the experience of the spicy noodles?
I'm hurting. I mean, that's the real deal. There's a reason why I don't do internet challenge stuff. And that's my first one, and hopefully my last. That was I'm hurting. I'm not lying.
you better get better with them predictions.
No,
then.
I can't bet against my team. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
No, I got you. After Witt and Ariel tried the noodles, did the noodle challenge. I had a bit to try, and I had 3 forks worth, and I was in pain. It was pretty bad, and
Yeah.
I give it to Witt because Witt ate an entire bowl. Like he completed the challenge, But it is.
It's just tough, man, because actually looking at the other numbers here, Witt went winless. So he predicted
Winless.
a win against the Lakers. He predicted a win against Portland.
Yep.
A loss against Philly. A loss against Miami. So just unfortunately, made the wrong predictions time and time again.
So if you want to make money,
He's rooting for his team.
If you wanna make
it's hard to go
money-
against it.
yeah, if you want to make money, just go and place all of your money against what Witt is choosing.
Look, see, I started out, I gotta cheer my team on, and then I realized I'm losing, so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start losing and cheer losing. They're gonna win. Look what happened.
But tell you what, January just started. The new challenge just started in January.
Right.
And Witt is 1-0. So
But
he did predict the
give-
right thing.
I give credit to Witt because Witt took it like a champ. He took it
did.
straight to the chest.
Yep.
He went in there. He finished it.
Yeah.
Ariel, on the other hand, disappointed me.
Yeah.
The listeners will find out what happened when we watch the video. But
I pay my debts. I took
Absolutely.
the challenge. I know
You
what I
did.
signed up
Respectful,
for.
sir.
I signed up for, and I
Respect.
lost. Get in there and do what you got to do.
I will say, just get ready for a lot of laughing, a lot of sweat, and a lot of heat. This challenge was fun.
And just so listeners know, too, we just started a new one. So January's a new month. So we just started with the Nets game. That game is behind us. So we got 3 more weeks to go, and then we'll do another one at the end of the month.
I think
Right.
that we should also do a whoever had the most correct predictions deserve to get rewarded also. They can do like a veto of a challenge.
The reward is being in this podcast and being part of the OZone crew.
Man.
That's just
You're that guy.
Al laid down the law.
Yeah. So let's get into the numbers. Current record 18-21. This puts us at 7th seed in the East. Offense points per game 103.5, 30th in the league. 3-point percentage 33.3, 26. Offensive rating 104.8, which has us 26th in the league. Defense points allowed 103.3, currently first in the NBA. Blocks 6.2 has us fifth. Defensive rating 104.9, which has us fifth. A lot of games this past week. The very first one was Monday's win against the Brooklyn Nets, 101-89. I was actually at that game. Amazing game. Markel went off. Career high at 25 points for Markel, including 7 clutch points that helped secure the win late in the fourth quarter. He really took the game in his hands and went off with it. Vucevic struggled to score, but I mean, he brought down 24 rebounds.
Right.
What you guys think about the game?
Yeah, Vooch. It was really cool to see, right? Because there's this criticism that Vooch is soft, right? That while he could put up these points, he's going to give you maybe 10, 12 rebounds a game, but he's not really a rebound threat, right? You wouldn't consider Vooch one of the best rebounders in the league. So it was a nice change of pace to see him grab those rebounds. But also, it was nice to see, okay, Vooch didn't produce the offense that we're used to seeing from him, but other guys like Markel took the offensive load, which realistically, in my opinion, is a more adequate representation of what the Magic should be, right? You should have your guards being those guys that you go to late game situations who could put up those points, and let your big men, kind of get physical down low, grab those rebounds, give second chance points, and whatnot. So that was a good version of the Orlando Magic.
I think the big key difference maker, they were taking advantage of a team who was definitely struggling with the Nets, but we hit our free throws that day. If you look at some of the losses we've had prior to this, was free throw issues, and if you look at the numbers, they were pretty up high with free throws compared to games prior.
And what I like is so in regards to what you were saying about Vooch, I had mentioned this earlier to someone else, and imagine a world where Nikola Vucevic isn't your first option. He's just someone that you're not relying to carry the team along the way. He can contribute instead of leading a team. Right. And I feel like that was a really good example with Markel, because Markel was aggressive, and he did it in ways that, it's not just taking it to the lane. He was shooting mid-range jump shots. He even hit a three. Two threes. He was really, really aggressive to where the offensive load didn't have to rely on Nikola Vucevic.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, too, that was a crucial game. Last year, we ended the season tied with the same record as the Nets. So to me, every game matters against the Nets. Any game that you can win against them, it's going to matter at the end of the year. We were losing the lead. We were up 12 for the half. We lost the lead completely heading into the fourth. So again, Markel coming in and doing what he did was crucial to us. I just want to see Markel going forward be this aggressive. He took 20 shots, the most he's taken all season. We want to see that Markel a little more often. But a crucial moment for him to perform the way he did. So that was really fun to watch.
Yeah, and didn't that put us in 7th?
That game got us to 7th.
We're still 7th because of that.
Yep.
So Wednesday we played against the Washington Wizards. The score was 123-89. It was a big win for us. The Magic dominated the shorthanded Wizards yet again and completed the season sweep. Beat them every single time we played them this season. So that's amazing. The Magic were led by Vucevic's 29 points and 9 rebounds. So really big offensive game from Vooch. Friday was a tough game. Lost against the Phoenix Suns. Score was 98-94. Gutsy performance all around when you consider the Magic did not have 5 of their rotational players, and we couldn't close out. The Suns went on an 8-0 run in the final minute of the game, and to seal the game away, Fournier led the Magic with 28 points, and Vooch added 18 points and 13 rebounds. It was a really tough way to end it. It seemed as if we were struggling for a while. We came back towards the end. The game was in our grasp, and we just let it slip away.
I feel bad for Evan on that game. You could tell he was playing his tail end off. In the third and fourth quarter, he was, till the end there, he held Booker till 6 points or something like that. I mean, I could see a couple of times where he was blocking a shot on the way up and turning him into offense. And that's a tough loss. But the guys hung in there. We're short-staffed, and our G League players, who are now our team, we played against them. We were competing.
Yeah, and also I think that Suns game highlighted our problems. Our problems are closing out games. It doesn't matter if we get down the stretch up by 15. We've seen that this team has a propensity to blow those leads, and this was a great example of that. So I think it going into 3.5 weeks before trade deadline, it highlighted again what our weakness is and one of the holes that we have to plug.
I mean, the major weakness from the game is being healthy. It's the fact that we have to play the players of Emil Jefferson. Our backup point guard is Josh Magette. And as much as I'm rooting for the kid, I hate the fact that we have so many G League players on our roster. I hate the fact that we have to and granted it's out of our control, right? We have so many injuries. We don't have the MCWs, the Alfaro Camino, so we're forced to play these players. But at the same time, it's Phoenix Suns was supposed to be a team, automatic win, check mark, onto the next one. We need to take advantage of those games. And the fact that we still almost pulled it out at the end really goes to show that, our players are playing. They're working hard, they're hustling, they're doing what they got to do, but just couldn't close it out.
So the Magic played a Magic basketball game. They found a way to be competitive, to keep it close at the end. What unfortunately happened again, it's the way we lost. That sucked. Because, personally, as a Magic fan, I went into the game thinking we're not going to win that game. It's going to be tough, for short-handed. So I expected a loss. But once I saw us up 4 with a minute left, I'm like, man, we got this. It's impressive. We're going to pull off this win. And not only that, but we have a tough Sacramento team playing next. Then we got the Lakers, the Clippers. We got some tough games coming up. So that was a much-needed win. Again, now we got to hopefully beat Sacramento to be back on track. Otherwise, it could turn ugly. You
know what I hated is that after that game, there was a lot of videos or clips and highlights that went viral. The block against Kelly Oubre that had over Terrence Ross, Devin Booker hitting game-winning big-time clutch shot at the end. Is like, stop it. Stop it.
We had that game.
We didn't have all our players. Stop it. There's nothing. If I'm the coach of the Phoenix Suns, I am not proud of that game.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I see your point, but I also feel like
a win's a win. I get it.
A win is a win, and good teams, contending teams, find ways to win. The Lakers won last night without AD or LeBron, it was a rout.
They had All-Star Kyle Kuzma.
No. But I guess the point is, ultimately, if you want to be competitive, if you want to be respected in this league, you have to win. And we don't have a star player per se. I mean, Vooch is an all-star. But again, when you compare him to other stars around the league, he doesn't have the same, I would say, the same gravity for the team. The same influence, impact that a LeBron or an Anthony Davis or a Kawhi Leonard or Paul George have. So, it's interesting. It has to be done. If we're going to win, it has to be done by committee. Everyone has to play their role. And we have to figure out how to win close games down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. So this past week, there was a lot of Magic news. A lot of things going around in the Magic world. But the very first thing that caught my attention is Bleacher Report. They released a list of suggested trade targets for the Magic. And they listed these following players: Chris Paul, Alonzo Trier, D'Angelo Russell, Dennis Smith Jr., and then the obvious DeMar DeRozan. What do you think about those players?
I like that list, with the exception of Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul doesn't fit our timeline. I think Chris Paul has proven that everywhere he goes, he kind of becomes the focal point, the issue. And Orlando, if Orlando is going to be successful, they have to focus on the future, because obviously we're not going to win now. So bringing in a guy who's towards the tail end of his career is a win now move, and I don't think that helps anyone. It would be really interesting to see a Dennis Smith Jr. In Orlando playing a 2-guard, for example, or an Alonzo Trier, same situation. But Chris Paul doesn't really spike my interest, and the Warriors we saw weren't interested in an AG for D'Lo trade, so that lets you know that they're gonna ask for everything.
I feel like the list wasn't creative. These are all names that we've heard before to a certain extent. The Dennis Smith Jr.'s, the Chris Paul's. Right. I don't know why there's even any point guards on the list. We don't need a point guard.
We don't need a point guard. But it's funny enough, you go online.
They keep throwing that. They want us to get a point. We already
exactly.
Yes, that was a conversation last season. It's not a conversation this season. We have our point guard.
People don't watch the Magic. People don't understand. We have Markelle Fultz playing well. People don't understand that yet. They think I heard recently somebody talk on the radio, and they actually said the line, Markelle's still coming off the bench. I'm like, people are not watching the Magic, and that's why you see this list that are not creative enough, still throwing the Dennis Smith Jr. and the Chris Paul on the list.
Wait, so you guys wouldn't be interested in a Dennis Smith Jr. to Orlando trade?
I would, for a second round pick, and
The
Wando?
the value isn't
I
high.
wouldn't give up a Wando for Dennis Smith Jr. But
You wouldn't?
No.
You wouldn't feel the upside is way higher with Dennis Smith Jr. He's in
Imagine having a rotation of point guards of Markelle Fultz and Dennis Smith Jr. in your team. Young, athletic.
That's not bad, and he can score the ball.
Yeah, he's kind of bad rep with the Knicks. I mean, look at what he did with Dallas. All he needs is a
Yeah,
coach
but
that
Dallas
says, hey.
gave him away, and they didn't really.
But at the time, their issue was he wanted to be the man. He wanted to be the guy with the ball in his hands.
But he can't. He's shown that he can. If
He can score.
So he was able to do that for a team like Dallas. You put him in a very bad situation in New York. The Knicks are just terrible organizationally and everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You take him out of that, and then you would hope that he's still able to bring at least some type of caliber play they brought from Dallas. But if you're saying, would you trade Wesley Iwundu for him? Absolutely, in a heartbeat.
You know what? On the list, the only guy that really caught my attention, I'm not sure if he's on the block or not, is Alonso Trier. I think that's a kid that can straight up score the ball.
And
Yeah, Seattle
apparently
wants to
he's
come to
he's
Seattle, too.
disgruntled in New York too.
He's not playing
He's
since
not
last
playing,
year. And
yeah.
he did well last year. So imagine him, again, I always say this, but another offensive threat along with Terrence Ross off the bench. That's a kid that may not be that expensive. You throw a pick here and there, and I don't know who, salary-wise, but that might be a kid that may blossom in Orlando if he's given a chance.
Exactly. So we either do a change now or we blow it up, start rebuilding.
It's actually funny you say that, Whit, because Steve Kyler of Basketball Insiders, he just reported, I was told the Magic are going to really look at where they are after the road trip and decide if it's time to blow it up or add to it. So that caught me off guard because I really didn't think that blowing it up was really an option. You know, I always thought that obviously we're in a good position, 7th in the East. Granted, the teams behind us are really, really bad. The only team that I was really worried about was the Detroit Pistons, and you know they're trying to trade Andre Drummond, and then Blake Griffin's out for the season. So is that where we are? Should we really be thinking about blowing it up? I mean, this road trip is going to be a tough road trip. We have a back-to-back with LA. Got to go against the Clippers, the Lakers. There's a big possibility with the team that we have and the injuries that we're facing that this may not be a successful road trip.
So, I mean, I do have the same concerns, but when I read that, I kind of filtered it through. So I watch like MMA a lot, UFC, and one of the worst things that you could be in any like professional fighting sport is a journeyman, right? A guy that fights continuously, but never really has a chance at winning a championship. And it's dangerous because it's almost like in your mind, you're telling yourself, I'm still relevant because I'm competitive, but you never really have a chance. And I think that's what Orlando's situation is now, where they're just good enough to make the playoffs in a bad conference, which is the Eastern Conference, but they're not really a threat to anyone. And I mean, barring a superstar trade, right, where you get like a D'Lo, for example, or you pull a Chris Paul who might kind of put us over the hump, Orlando is not really in a position where for the foreseeable future, meaning like next year, 2 years, where they're going to contend for a championship unless there is a significant change. So when I hear blow it up, I feel like, yes, that might be an option. And I'm assuming that through a blow up, they mean everybody's for sale except Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac.
I mean, because when I hear blow up, I interpret it a little different. I'm not hearing rebuild. Like, to me, blow up is not rebuild. You have the key pieces, and I'm not against it because I would love to see what the value for Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, Nikola Vucevic would look like. We've talked about it for so long.
That would also include Terrence Ross, DJ Augustine.
Yeah.
So I think the two guys that lead to this is DJ Augustine being a free agent, just losing for nothing, and Evan Fournier again opting out in the summer, and then him just walking away from nothing. So that creates this issue. Also, Jonathan Isaac being hurt the rest of the season. So if you're trying to contend, I don't think you can contend and make a playoff spot with the current roster, knowing that Aminu's out the season, Isaac's out the season. So you got to add something to the team right now. So I think that injury of Isaac, Aminu, and then that uncertainty of what's going to happen with Fournier and Augustine creates this momentum of, hey, what are we doing?
I think he's feeling some pressure and kind of letting that be known a little bit. So, like, saying I'm going to possibly blow this up means, look, no one wants our guys. We're not getting anybody in here, right? So we're gonna have to look this summer to make some changes if that might be the case. So, and I also think that he might be getting pressure to buy some time with our younger players, develop and see what we got, maybe use those as trading pieces over the summer or develop them over the summer. But more importantly is like, you know what? They're cheap. That we're still possibly in the playoffs. People are still coming to the games. So from an executive standpoint, business-wise, business is good.
Right. So I see that point as well. But I think my thing is All-Star break is before the trade deadline, correct?
After.
Is it?
Yes. So the 6th is the trade deadline. The week after that is the All-Star break and all that good stuff.
I was thinking it was the first week of All-Star break, because what I was going to say was maybe if we're not competitive by that time, they still have a week to kind of get a fire sale going.
That's the problem.
This year.
So we really have 3.5 weeks. So that's why so the thing is, we have the West Coast trip. We then come back, we play OKC, we play the Celtics, the Clippers, Miami Heat twice, right before the deadline. So our schedule is brutal between now and the trade deadline. So if our team loses 3-4 games in this road trip, comes home to face all those tough teams, we could easily be 7, 8, 9, 10 games below 500. So now it's like, okay, what do we do with Fournier? What do we do with DJ? Are we playing for something, or are we just losing 4 games in the playoffs?
So you think that this West Coast road trip could be the determining factor in whether we pursue a Fournier trade or keep him long term, or decide to just let go of all of the guys because we're no longer competitive?
I think what Kyler is saying is it's going to determine whether we add to this team in this core, or we just say, no, let's actually trade a Fournier because we're not that good right now. We're going to make the playoffs maybe because the East is so bad. We're going to get spanked no matter what by Milwaukee in 4 games. So why keep a guy, again, for only 3 more months and losing him in the playoff and in the offseason?
Right.
So that's what it's tough, man. Like I said, I wouldn't want to be in the front office right now because there's a lot of tough decisions. It all started last year with Vucevic and Ross. Like, what do you do with those guys? We brought them back. But now it's similar situation this year with Fournier and Augustine. It's tough.
I mean, that's why they get paid the big
Oh,
bucks.
for sure. For sure.
So Sam Amick of The Athletic came out with a report saying that there's chatter coming from Orlando about a potential deal in regards to Aaron Gordon. So it's being talked about. Obviously, our front office has always been very discreet, but other execs are the opposite, right? Sam Amick also goes on to report that the Warriors have absolutely no interest in D'Angelo Russell for an Aaron Gordon swap. The Warriors' dealings offered a hard no when asked specifically about the scenario, which honestly I wasn't crazy. Yeah, that's not out of the ordinary. They didn't say no for an Aaron Gordon trade. They said no for an Aaron Gordon D'Angelo Russell swap. Who in the right mind would make that move?
Right. Right. To think that AG would garner the same interest,
absolutely not,
is a little ridiculous.
Not only that, but D'Angelo Russell's 2 years younger than AG.
He's 2 years younger. He's playing at a higher level. His ceiling at this present time looks to be higher. Having a starting lineup for the Warriors centered around D'Lo being a point guard,
and he was an All-Star last season. He was the last one included,
right? But he was also included because of Depot's injury,
right?
So there's a case to be made there.
It still counts. It gets that's a check mark on the resume.
It does, but I think it kind of whenever you're having these type of discussions, it discredits, whether he was really an All-Star or not. I don't think you can argue that he is a scorer. He is someone who can carry a team to a win, and those guys are valuable.
Yeah. And I think that's one that again, going back to Kyler for a second, that's when that brings up the blowing it up idea. At that point, if you say, hey, Golden State, we want D'Lo, Gordon's not enough, we understand that, what will it take? And if they come out and say, hey, yeah, we'll give it to you, give us Gordon, give us a pick, give us a Bamba or a Fournier or a whatever else, that's where the idea of let's blow it up becomes a real thing. Let's really talk about it. And the fact that the Magic are involved in discussions tells me that's real. I don't know about you guys, but since 2016, I've been following this team. The new GM came to place, the new front office team. Every summer, I go to the offseason thinking, we're going to add a shooter. We're going to add offense. That hasn't happened. I think they realize we got to do this. The defense is good. We just said every now and the numbers. 5th in block, number 1 in points allowed. The defense is there. We got to score the ball now. And unfortunately, the pieces are not there. Isaac did not make the huge jump we expected. It may happen later on. Gordon is definitely not there. Vooch is the only guy, and Ross. But that's also here and there.
And I think it's also crazy that you were bringing up the numbers, right? Because defensively, when you look at, like you said, the points per game, 3-point percentage, the points allowed, blocks, and defensive rating, we're top 5 in all of those categories.
Yep.
But then when you look at our offense and you look at points per game, 3-point shooting, and offensive rating, we're bottom 5 in the league.
That.
So it's like, it doesn't matter how great your defense is, and we've talked about this. If you cannot put the ball through the basket, it doesn't matter.
But you know what's surprising is that we do have offensive players. Evan Fournier, is he a better offensive player or a defensive player?
Offensive.
Vucevic, better offense or defense?
Offensive.
DJ Augustine, Terrence Ross. The problem is that the level of talent, those are the ones leading us. We need an elite offensive player. And that's one thing that we've been missing for a very, very long time.
In recent memory, could you think of a team that won a championship without a superstar?
Yes.
Who?
A very long time ago. Detroit Pistons. The Chauncey Billups, the Ben Wallace,
That was with
Rasheed Wallace.
That was with the old NBA where I feel like
that was the old
Or-
NBA. And what I mean to
That was
be
mid
potential.
2000s. That's not that old.
That was a team that they didn't have a Kobe, a LeBron, a Tim Duncan.
But to be fair, the year that they won, Chauncey Billups played out of his mind. And they were also facing elimination a couple of those games, and lucky shots went in. A half-court shot from Chauncey Billups kept them in the playoffs. Like,
against the Nets,
a win's a win, Justin.
yeah, you're right. A win is a win. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you think of championships in the modern NBA, you think of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, LeBron James. Like, you think of guys, Kawhi Leonard. You think of guys that they don't just play in a team, they transcend the sport. You know who these guys are outside of whether you watch basketball or don't. And I think that's the era that we're in. We need one of those guys to be a real threat to winning a championship.
And I think even a guy like we've talked about many times before, DeMar DeRozan. I know he's a bipolar player. People like him, people don't. But just a guy like that, we can say, hey, we're down, we're up 4 against Phoenix on
the lead.
Friday night. Give him the ball, isolate, set a pick. He'll create either a nice mid-range shot. He'll get fouled going to the basket.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that right now. As much as I like everyone on our team right now, I really like our team the way it's built. But let's be realistic. We don't have that. Even Markel, he went to the basket. He had a layup. He decided to pass it, turnover. We lack that killer instinct. And a guy like DeMar DeRozan.
We lack leadership.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what the elite players are. They're leaders. They make people around them better.
That's right. And DeMar's
We
not
don't have that.
DeMar's not the perfect player by any means. He's not a 3-point shooter. He's not anymore an elite guy that can score you 30 points a game. We understand that. But the mindset he has, he's been in the playoffs. He's been a part of winning teams. Again, it doesn't have to be him. Just someone like him that comes to Orlando and help us out.
But that all starts with our front office. I'm ready for them to do something splashy.
They need to.
I'm ready for them to take a risk. They haven't done that. They've been, again, very, very discreet, very into the back, very passive. But one thing that we can say about our front office is that they're crafty, right? They make really good financial decisions. For example, a report from The Athletic, the Orlando Magic have applied for 2 disabled player exceptions for Jonathan Isaac and Al-Farouq Aminu, with the NBA that would project season-ending losses. So we have 2 players that there's no exact time frame of when they're going to return. So the way that the DPs work is that if the NBA, we submit the request, if the NBA approves it, that's because they feel those players will not be able to play before the June 15 timeframe, right? So by us not putting a deadline or a return date for them, that allows them to be in that specific category. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not it goes through or not is to be seen, but the fact that we're at least attempting to take advantage of every loophole, every rule, anything we can to get a financial advantage, I mean, that's something we, at the very least, we can agree that we can give credit to
and
our front office.
I think that also that disabled player exception and having Jonathan Isaac included in that kind of shows that Jonathan Isaac is, in fact, in the future plans of Orlando, right? Because initially it was thought that he was going to be out for 2 months. But then, and this hasn't been reported, but if I were putting on my front office hat, right, I would think, well, if we keep Jonathan Isaac out the rest of the season, this gives us valued at $2.9 million exception for Jonathan Isaac lets us let him heal up, not put extra pressure on him, because we're not a team that likes to put pressure on guys, right? Markel Fultz, for example. And then that allows us to pick up somebody else for cheaper, right? Because we're making the playoffs regardless. There would have to be a severe meltdown just based on the bottom, like, 5, teams in the East. There would have to be a severe meltdown for Orlando to miss the playoffs. This is even without Jonathan Isaac, even without Al-Farouq Aminu, right? So you bring in a middle-of-the-road player for $2.9 million, and what happens? He doesn't necessarily have to play Jonathan Isaac's minutes, but you keep your roster full. You allow what you're expecting to be your superstar to heal properly so that there's no issues later on. And you stay competitive by making the playoffs.
And I feel that's really what we're doing right now. We're the team that we have right now, and as you said, with the teams behind us, there's no way that we're not making the playoffs. The teams behind us are just that bad. Right? So we still had that open 15 spot. So the Orlando Magic just recently announced that they're signing Josh Majette to a 10-day contract, and then his 2-way contract is being given to Vic Law. So that completes our 15-man roster.
For now.
For now, right? Before any foreseeable trades, right?
Changes, yeah.
What I don't like about this is I feel we just put a Band-Aid. That's what it feels like. It feels like and not even a brand name Band-Aid, like a cheap Band-Aid, like one of the off-brand Walgreens Band-Aids. Because it's by far, they made a decision that was by far the cheapest decision possible.
Right.
So I think that the fear for the Magic was being reported too is that they feared losing Vic Law to another team. As you guys know, the 10-day contracts are only offered until January 24th. I could be wrong on the dates, but we're getting to that point where if someone likes Vic Law, who's been balling, by the way, in G League, and say the Knicks offer him a 2-way contract, something like that, we now lose that player from Lakeland in our organization. So they want to secure him. They want to have his rights. Now, the only issue is Josh Majette now is on a 10-day contract. He can resign another 10-day contract. That's 20 days in total. After that, you got to decide what to do with him. Do you bring him for the season or do you waive him? The only thing that's keeping me at peace here is if Vic Law is decent, you have a nice forward that can play backup power forward right now since we have so many injuries. But also, if the Isaac and Aminu exceptions are approved, we then have 2 roster open spots there that we can sign a free agent. So we may have some more changes coming. This next 3 weeks are huge for the team. But for now, like you're saying, it's a Band-Aid, but one that they see as an asset. They really see Vic Law as a player that they can develop.
And I'm okay with that, but there's just so many. You have Emil Jefferson, Josh Majette, BJ Johnson, you got Melvin Frazier. There's so many.
Yes.
There's no reason. I get 1, maximum 2, but there's so many of them.
But you also have to think about the fact that if our team was healthy, that means MCW would be there. That means Jonathan Isaac would be there. Al-Farouq Aminu would be there. Those 3 slots that you just mentioned, 3 players, they wouldn't be there.
Correct.
Right? They're only there because they're a cheap option. For the amount of money that we had available to us, we weren't going to pick up a game changer. So why not protect, like I was saying, protect the guys that you do have. Allow yourself time to kind of gauge how good they're going to be, right? While simultaneously preventing other teams to come through and grab those pieces.
It's a clear strategic move, and that's what the G League's for, right? Help create like a farm league.
It is.
So come on, fellas, it's your time to step it up and be a good story.
And I also think that if that player exemption is approved for Isaac and Aminu, again, with those 2 open roster spots, you can now go out there and make a trade, a loop-sided trade. It could be you could receive 2 players for 1. So say, for instance, you trade Gordon. You can now get 2 players back for Gordon instead of just 1. So it creates flexibility for our team. And I do not expect us to fill those roster spots, if it's approved, the request, right away. We're going to wait until the 6th of February, the trade deadline, to make those decisions. But
so it's success out there that comes from the G League. I think of Toronto.
Oh God, yes.
Right. So there's possibilities here. It's kind of the same
Miami also.
Yeah, Miami same as well. So hey, it's time for these young men to get in there and ball out. Like, hey, make that story.
Who would you say has been, in all of Orlando Magic history, our best D-League, G-League player that we've had?
Ever?
Ever.
Man, you got to give me time for research on that.
Yeah,
I don't
think of
recall one, to be
the only
honest.
one that I can really think is Dwayne Dedman.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he did carve out an actual NBA career.
He's the only one that comes to mind.
That's
So
someone
you-
else.
So your argument is that these guys, historically speaking, these guys aren't gonna become.
Historically, there's not that many out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not saying because you've had players in other teams, but the possibility is so small.
The only guy that we had kind of becoming a decent player was Isaiah Briscoe, who, again, not really a G League, but a weird find that
And didn't Jonathan Simmons play in the G League as well?
with the Spurs. but-
Yeah, with the Spurs, but he wasn't a bad player. I think that he was a decent player.
he got us Markel Fultz. Let's be
No,
proud
he
of
was
that.
he was a decent player, and when he was traded from the Spurs here, I was excited. Like
Me
I
too.
remember driving back from New Smyrna Beach and
Excited.
seeing the trade, and I was like, "Oh man, this is good," because he was playing really well in San Antonio.
And the contract wasn't much.
Right, but I think again we judge these guys with these like magic glasses, like we're looking for offensive productivity, and if you don't bring that, then automatically you're labeled as a bust or trash or whatever it is. And realistically, if those players were playing in other systems, they could have had a chance.
Possibly.
So, obviously, right now we're on a West Coast road trip. So, games ahead. Monday we have Sacramento. Wednesday against the Lakers. Thursday Clippers. Saturday Golden State. The game of the week is going to be
The Lakers.
if they decide to play their players. I feel like when we play against the Lakers and the Clippers, there's going to be a whole lot of load management happening.
According to LeBron, he doesn't load.
No, of course not. That's
He
not something.
he cold manages.
No. They just decided to give LeBron and AD a break on the same day, same game.
Right. No, I think the Lakers game should be the game of the week. I think it'll be interesting, especially like talking about Kyle Kuzma possibly being a target for the Magic.
You know,
seeing
that's
he
something
plays.
I would be interested in watching. No LeBron, no AD, just Kyle Kuzma against the Magic.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good gauge of what Kyle Kuzma's real talent is, what his ability is when he's the primary option, and he doesn't have superstars to kind of lay back on. So I think it'll be interesting to watch. If we were gonna give our predictions for the game of the week against the Lakers, I would say that the Magic win. I think we're gonna surprise a lot of people on this West Coast road trip. We started off bad in Phoenix, but I think that became a topic of discussion on the flight to Sacramento, and I think that the guys are gonna give it all and get more wins than we possibly thought that they were gonna get.
I'm taking a loss
There you go.
against the Lakers. My stomach can't take any more, bro. I'm just trying to be as real as I can. Sorry, fellas.
You're thinking with your brain, not your heart this time.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
Learning your lessons.
My brain's got on fire too.
I fully expect LeBron and AD to play in that game. At least one of those guys. So because of that, I'm going to say the Lakers win that game.
Yeah, I'm going with the Lakers win also. Just talent wise, even without. Like you said, without one of them, they're still a really tough team. They have a really good bench. And then you have Jared Dudley that, he goes into every game with the game plan of giving the ball to LeBron. And it does well for them.
And I also think we allow the fewest points in the NBA. So if we're talking about a Lakers team that's going to put up 125, 130 points, that might not be the case. I think when we played the Lakers last, we were going through like a lull period in our defense. And I think we found our defense again. So I think that on this West Coast trip, this is going to be an opportunity for the guys to show, hey, while we do struggle offensively, defense is our calling card. It was supposed to be our calling card since last season. We found that groove back, and now we're going to defensively lock down some of these players. But whether Aaron Gordon plays or not is a huge determining factor.
Absolutely.
Because we need AG to guard LeBron.
If not, then it's Wesley Iwundu. Brutal. And now, guys, we're going to jump into overtime with Oscar Creed from OrlandoMagicWave. Welcome, everyone, to Overtime with OrlandoMagicWave. Oscar, welcome.
How's it going, guys? Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're
What's going on?
super excited to have you here. Very first guest of the OZone podcast, so we're really excited. For those that aren't familiar with Orlando Magic Wave, they're a social media account on Instagram, the leading Orlando Magic account on IG. But for those that don't know, Oscar, introduce yourself to the people.
What's going on, everyone? I run Orlando Magic Wave, just like Anthony said, and I'm likely the only Magic fan up north in Canada. So I'm holding it down for everyone up here.
Nice. So I really want to jump into it because I really want to know, how does somebody that is born and raised in Toronto become an Orlando Magic fan out of all teams?
Yeah, definitely a question I get quite a bit. It's not ordinary that you see a Canadian as a fan of a Floridian basketball team, but I lived a good chunk of my life in the States. I was living in New Jersey for a couple years, and for a while I was a fan of the New Jersey Nets, and they moved out to Brooklyn, and I said that's not a move I like. So I sided with my favorite player, Dwight Howard. I was a big fan at the time, still am, and ever since then I've been on the Magic, and back in 2016 especially when my personal favorite player, Bismack Biyombo, inked that amazing contract with a well-deserved contract with the Magic, and that was when I actually started the page, right the day after the signing. So, fun little fact.
That's really interesting because I remember Biyombo having that. It was against the Cavs, and I think he pulled down like 26 rebounds. And I was watching that game at my dad's house, and I said, Orlando needs Biyombo. And I never thought that he was going to sign here. But then the very next season, he was in Orlando Magic. I was excited about that too.
Probably weren't excited about all that money though, eh?
No, not at all.
No, I was at that game, the 26 rebound, 25 rebound, it was one of the two. I was at that game because it was in Toronto, and it had the whole arena completely just, everyone was on their feet, everyone was loving Bismack. He was a Toronto icon for the time he was here. But yeah, no, that was what swayed me, and it was cool to see it.
Have you ever rooted for the Raptors? Was that ever
Never
a
in
thing?
my life, and I
Never,
will.
not once.
I will say I did have a few drinks when they won the championship, just because everybody was partying. I wasn't too happy about it, but I was trying to drown my sorrows a bit.
Nah, I mean, I remember seeing the videos when they were playing it during the finals, and the city looked insane.
Yeah,
Like
I grew up-
Jurassic Park was on our side. You can tell that, man, that experience just from a fan perspective must have been nuts. Because even when we made it to the NBA Finals against the Lakers, it was a pretty big deal. Downtown was really lit. There was a lot of people there, traffic, the whole nine. So just to see it on that level was nowhere even close to what it was here in Orlando.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And you only imagine how crazy it'd be if they actually won that year, and the scene would be even more electrifying. But I gotta say, I went downtown when they won the championship, and I was trying to get some footage to kind of just capture the moment, and it was something I've never seen before. It was you think of Toronto as a hockey city, right? But it was a basketball country that night.
That is awesome. So just to spin it forward a little bit, so what do you enjoy most about running a Magic Instagram page?
The fact that it gives, normal people like us, people who aren't actually involved with the organization or have any true say in the organization, it gives us a voice, and it makes us feel kind of like, it gives us a platform for like-minded people. And for me to be able to show my passion for the team, and interacting with fans and followers every day, that's my favorite part. I get to talk ball with Magic basketball with some of the best fans in the world.
As a fellow Magic Instagrammer, I think the biggest thing for me is the Orlando Magic. Their page is very cookie cutter, right?
Yeah.
And they're only able to say certain things. So whereas we don't have the boundaries, we don't have the wall, we can talk about the rumors, we can talk about this player not playing well, we can talk about, changes that need to be done, and allows the listeners to or other fans to be able to, get it off their chest and really say how they feel about it, kind of like an outlet.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think, like you said, they're cookie cutter. It's a very basic feed they have going on, and they don't tend to throw in any kind of memes or anything funny, kind of like the Sacramento Kings or the Portland Trailblazers, whoever they got some good guys running their social media up there. But you're right, we get to say the things that the big guys don't. So that's what I like most.
Yeah, and Oscar, now kind of thinking about the team, what's your favorite Orlando Magic memory of all time?
So I'm like, I've only been around since 2001. I haven't been able to experience as much as you guys. But I know I might get some hate for saying this, but my favorite memory was actually recent. It was the DJ Augustine game winner in Toronto, and that by far is mine because I was able to go to that game. And I was the only speck of blue in this sea of red. And I was you could hear me from any side, any angle of the entire arena. And that was me. I was so happy. And that thing is ingrained in my memory for the rest of my life.
Yeah, Oscar, seeing that memory and getting to that point brings up a good question. If to get to the championship, if we have to make a trade and you ran the front office, what trade would you make?
You can't say Bismack Biyombo. We already did that. It didn't work. It didn't
Come on,
work.
bro. No, God, no way. But I've been really intrigued about D'Angelo Russell, and as every Magic fan is, all I see in the comments is let's get D'Angelo. Find a way. Let's do Aaron Gordon for D'Angelo. That'd be tough considering how AG's played. But for me, I was thinking of two different kind of trades. One was actually centered around D'Angelo, and one was centered around, funny enough, it was some Raptors players. So I was thinking either Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, and a first or a couple seconds for D'Angelo and Kevon Looney. Because I was thinking, Kem Birch has kind of shown this year that he's not extremely efficient at the center spot. He's improving, but Kevon Looney showed us last year with that championship DNA, and then him and D'Lo being able to provide for both of us. We get some rebounding from Looney, and obviously the much needed scoring from D'Lo. And the second one was something like Aaron Gordon or DJ or T. Ross for OG Anunoby or Norman Powell. But just with two teams with guys that have championship and playoff experience, and with the Raptors, I mean, both teams actually, they're both young returns, right? So I thought I was looking for youth and some sort of improvement on scoring and defense.
Yeah, I think those were both, I guess, possibly realistic ideas. The OG Anunoby and Norman Powell is interesting because I feel like a lot of what you get from Terrence Ross, for example, you would get from Norman Powell, just not necessarily at the same level. Yeah. So if you sent, for example, DJ and T. Ross, you would get maybe an elevated version, younger version with OG Anunoby, but I think we'd be taking an L in that T. Ross Norman Powell trade. But it'd be interesting to see because they're both young, still developing. And Norman Powell, I think, and I haven't spoken to him personally, but just based on how he plays, he takes a lot from Terrence Ross's game just from the time that they spent together in Toronto.
No, of course, yeah. No, nothing I thought of was cemented. I was kind of spitballing earlier. I don't have a definite trade, I think, that, I know would send us to the next level. I think all I know is we got to take risks. We got to take a risk on something. So, because we're a franchise that just doesn't take risks. We're pretty laid back. And the fans deserve a change. The players deserve a change. Everyone does. So,
every time I hear Norman Powell's name, it always reminds me a few years ago when we had Serge Ibaka. It reminds me of the skit from Bleacher Report, Game of Zones, where they're kind of deciding, who to give up, Terrence Ross, Norman Powell. So
that was funny. I remember that.
All right, Oscar, one more question. Now, with the team's going through a funk, we got a lot going on. What do you think is going to happen towards the end of the season?
Do you want the realistic answer or the biased answer?
No, we need realistic. This is a cookie.
Realistic.
No cookie.
All right. Good. Okay. Well, just a few points. I think Coach Cliff is going to get put on the hot seat. Now, I don't know if he'll actually get fired. I don't know if the front office will seriously look into it or consider it. But I got a good feeling that we're going to hear in a few weeks from now, if things kind of keep going the way they're going, you know, a win or two here and then a bunch of losses, then Cliff's going to be on the hot seat. I'm also predicting an Aaron Gordon trade. I think that's pretty evident. As much as I love the guy, he was my first Magic jersey ever. But you know, I think that we are stunting his development and he's stunting ours at the same time. You know, Aaron, we know what he's capable of, and he's shown us over the last few years. But it just, in my honest opinion, I got a good feeling that the front office is going to seriously start looking into trades for him. And the last one being Judah is going to miss the all defensive team nod because of his injury and how it's season ending. And as heartbreaking as that is for me to say, and how well deserved it is, I don't see them giving him it.
Yeah, I agree with your predictions. Jonathan Isaac, his name started coming up, you know, really often in the media, and his name was attached to, you know, all defensive. You know, he's balling out defensively, was our anchor for that, and the fact that he got injured and hinders it, I think would have really, you know, is missing out because that would have propelled him for the following season. Do you think that your prediction that Coach Cliff is going to be on the hot seat? Do you think that's the right move?
It's tough. It's tough because, you know, in order to kind of keep a winning culture or a happy team, the chemistry up, you know, having the coach around and having someone that the players like is good to have. And from what I've seen the players, they enjoy Cliff. Like, we haven't heard any kind of discrepancy or bad news from Cliff. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's the right move, in my humble opinion. He's messed us up a few times this year. And I don't know if you guys have seen my stories about my rants on Cliff mid-game, but he's made some really, really questionable calls this year that have very visibly cost us those games.
Yeah, I think we can all agree. We've all complained about his rotational decisions. For me, I've always found it a difficult hurdle just because we've gone through so many if you really think about how many coaches a player like Aaron Gordon has gone through, you know, he's already on, what is it, 5-6 coaches that he's had in the NBA.
Well,
you know,
yeah,
so
he's had yeah.
It's the amount of inconsistencies that I'm not a fan of. And then really thinking what other coaches out there right now that is better than Coach Clifford. You know, it's you either try to find that person or you take a risk on a coach that needs to prove themselves or someone that wants to be a coach. So that would be my only nod on those.
And I think what makes it a little more difficult is there was some report the other day, but Kemba Walker accredited Steve Clifford with kind of taking his game to the next level. So when you have an elite caliber point guard say something like that, and you have a young guy in Markelle Fultz who you're hoping is going to be the savior for this franchise for years to come, it's like if that high of a level of point guard is saying this coach unlocked this talent in me, then you kind of want to write it out and see if he can work that same magic on Markelle.
Yeah, I'm all for that, and I think I saw that the other day as well. And I was thinking to myself, we'd kill for a Kemba type player and a coach that'd be able to develop him like that. It's just, you know, from what I'm seeing, a lot of the older coaches, you know, guys like Cliff, yeah, older guys and younger teams, I always feel like they don't mesh as well as, say, for example, a young team looking to prove themselves and a new and up-and-coming coach doing the same thing. Like, look at the Hornets. You got Borrego, and he's leading, you know, Devontae Graham and those guys. He's able to bring them up on the come-up. I always thought that old coaches, older guys with not a ton of kind of successful experience don't always mesh well with a young, inexperienced core, you know?
That makes sense. And I always felt like Coach Clifford was the if you were to put Scott Skiles and Frank Vogel together, you would get Coach Clifford.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always felt like the Magic also, we've always gone after guys that we're comfortable with. So Scott Skiles was someone from our history, our past. Coach Clifford, the exact same team, the exact same thing. So it's like, you know, when are we going to jump outside of the box, think outside the box, and do something a little more splashy?
Yeah, and that's what we talk about with risks, right? Like, this team has yet to make a big risk since the Hennigan era, and I think that's why we're cautious, because we saw how bad Hennigan messed us up, with quick moves like Oladipo and taking that big risk on Ibaka,
Smack Biombo.
watch it. But I think we got some guys at the front office who are able to make more calculated risks instead of just pulling the trigger. I think that's why they've been fielding the market for AG for a while, because who knows, he could have a AG like or a Oladipo like come up next season if we move him. Who knows, right? I think that's why we're afraid to pull some triggers.
Yeah, because Markelle Fultz wasn't a risk. I said that on the podcast before. That was, a low risk, high reward move. And I think we're getting to the point where, all right, you've analyzed the team enough. You know what you have. You know the players, the coach, the whole nine. Now's the time that you do make some move, anything that's more than, the basic trading of Bismack for Mozgov to be able to do the things that he's done financially. So, for sure.
No, we've had to make up a lot of his mistakes, that's for sure, and it's definitely set us back a few. Imagine if we had taken the right risks early on and continued that kind of pattern moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. So, Oscar, we want to get into a little quick segment with you. All right.
Yes, sir.
Pretty simple. It's called a fire drill. We're going to ask you 5 questions, and the caveat is you only have 2.5 seconds to answer.
All right, bet. Sounds good.
2.5. So you're gonna keep track. Nah, I got it. All right. All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Favorite Orlando Magic player of all time?
Bismack Biyombo.
One place you travel to that you want to travel to?
San Diego.
Favorite dish?
Ribs.
If you weren't an Orlando Magic fan, what other team would you be a fan of?
Milwaukee Bucks.
Favorite memory of your one-time visit to Orlando?
Disney World. And getting the plush Backyardigans doll.
Yeah, man.
That was really good.
You got to find a way to get back to Orlando and enjoy it more as an adult than, when you went there first as a kid. So.
Yeah, 100%, man. I've been trying to get out there. People have been saying, come watch the game with us. I'll give you a ticket or something like that. And I've been dying to come down and especially meet you guys, after this podcast. It's I got to find a way to get down there as soon as I can.
Yeah, and it's good that you take advantage of watching the Magic when they do go up to Toronto. But the Amway it's an amazing, amazing place to watch the game up close and live, and the way that the arena is with their City Edition court also is a crazy atmosphere.
Yeah,
Don't forget, we also have the best mascot in the game.
Yes, we do.
Sir.
Yes, we do.
Man, Stuff gets everybody hyped in the arena. He's one of the best mascots I've seen in any sport, and that's
for sure.
Yeah,
he does. He's extra. I like what he brings a lot to the table, especially for fans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Oscar, I appreciate you being on with us. Can you tell everyone where they can follow you? Because I know you have other things outside of Instagram as well, right?
Yes, sir. The official handle for Instagram is OrlandoMagicWave, one word, no spaces, and my Twitter account is ORLMagicWave. So follow me up on that, and I'll be glad to have you guys.
All right. That's a wrap with Oscar and Overtime with Orlando Magic Wave.
Thank you, Oscar.
boys.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys.
And again, thank you to Oscar Creed for joining us for the podcast. But let's wrap this up, boys. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts for me. I would love to see the Magic win at least 2 games this week. That's all. That's all I want. I mean, if you go any worse than that, again, we're not risking a playoff spot just yet. But I'm a little concerned with the tough schedule we have ahead. So give me 2 wins this week, and then we'll deal with the rest the following week.
For me, just show off that defensive prowess. Show off why you're rated number 1 in points allowed. Just show up, rely on what your strengths are, and don't try to do too much.
That's nice. My thoughts are completely about, hey, let's get these players healthy again, speedy recovery for these guys, and the new young players in. Now's your time. You dreamed your whole life to be here. Now you're here, especially in the lights of LA. Time to bring the A game.
Yeah, I want to see contributions from the G Leaguers, not just a body filler. I want to actually go out there, produce, and be active. I want to see some hard hustle, get on the ground, foul a lot of players, make them feel your presence, and just play ball. But, that's it. Great episode today, guys.
Yes, sir.
That's a wrap for us. Peace.
Peace.
Peace out. Thank you for listening to the OZone podcast, the voice of Magic fans.
Be sure to visit our website, theozonepod.com, and remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.